Hey everybody, John Burton with you, and we're going to talk about pretty major reformation that needs to come to the church. Now, there's all sorts of frustration out there regarding the church in its current state. People are done with it. You got the dones, right? You got people leaving. They don't like the church as it is, and they're done with it, and they're just done. And so, and then they're disappearing and they're leaving, and that's not the right way to do it. The right way is not just to jump ship from the church, and for all of you people out there that say, well, I am the church. No, you are not. You are not the church. It's impossible. It's impossible. You can't be the church alone. You can't be the church outside of a corporate gathering under apostolic leadership. That's the definition of the ecclesia. It's a gathering under leadership, right? And so you can do it, you don't have to do it in a typical church building. You can do it with church, with groups of all sizes, but there has to be apostolic. We're talking about a fivefold leader, and there has to be a gathering. And then of course, everything that comes along with that, you have to have the response, to the leadership in terms of, we're going in the same direction together, and you got to have the unity, the camaraderie, right? It's got to be based on prayer. We go on and on and on, talking about really what the church needs to develop into. But today, I'm talking about something a little bit different. I'm talking about the local church, as we know it, needs to give way to the city church. And it's a big shift. I'm going to go over, let's see, I think I have 10. I have 10 marks of the city church and how it looks so unbelievably different than the local church. And by the way, news flash and spoiler alert, we're not doing away with the local church. Absolutely not. So that church that you visit on the corner and has a pastor, and you're going there, you're going to still go there. Absolutely. We're going to see these churches become stronger and healthier, and so they're going to be there, and you're going to still be going. But man, just get ready. The change it's not only going to be extreme, but it's going to be very, very challenging, and really it's going to be probably challenging mostly for pastors. For church leaders, because this is a big one. It's a difficult one. And so let's just jump right into it. Here are 10 changes coming to the church that or another way to say it, 10 marks of the city church. Number 1, there will be zero competition between local churches. Now understand, in Scripture, the church is defined not by the street corner, but by the city, the church of Ephesus, for example, right? And so churches, local churches, as we know them, they will no longer be entities unto themselves and islands unto themselves, and but they are going to be part of the city church. There'll be departments of the city church, much like in a local church. You're going to have maybe the youth department, the worship department, and the children's department, and singles department. You have these various departments. Same concept. You wouldn't imagine these different departments in a local church, fighting against each other. Of course not. That's silly. They're going to have synergy. They're going to be connected. They're going to be locked in with one another. They're going to be responsive to one another. They're going to consider each other's schedules, and so that if the youth department needs the sanctuary on Friday night, then they get it Friday night, and the singles can't have it Friday night, right? And just practical things, like that. So there you've got departments in the local church. Well, local churches are actually departments of the city church. So number 1, there won't be any competition in the city church. It'll be glorious. Oh, can you imagine? Just amazing, where there's just no competition. So if one department of the city church, the local church over here, they're growing, and the fire of God is there, and numerically they're growing, and financially they're growing, and well, this church over here that maybe they're not growing so much, they're excited about it, right? They're celebrating them. They're encouraging them. They're on board with what they're doing, and so there's no competition, and so if it's just where there's camaraderie and there's unity, and we're going to celebrate each other, and we're going to be excited about this church over here, and we're going to help this church over here, and so if there's a church that is struggling, a local church that is struggling, well, then other churches in the city, man, they're going to rally behind them. They're going to encourage them. Maybe they're going to give them money. They're going to, maybe they'll connect with the leader of that church and maybe help them. Maybe there are reasons why, they're struggling, and go on and on and on. And so no competition. There just won't be any. And it won't be weird, if you leave a church and then you see your ex-pastor at Walmart, it won't be weird anymore. It'll be normal. It's like, hey, how are you doing? I'm doing awesome. How are you doing? And how are you? You're connected over here in this other place, this other department. That's great. See, you don't get stressed out if someone in the singles ministry just maybe doesn't feel like they're a fit over there and they decide to join a small group in your church. Doesn't bother you at all. The singles pastor isn't going to be bothered at all. Or you go from one small group to another small group. That's just the way it is, right? And so that's number one. No competition between local churches. Number two, regional government, church government, will be prioritized over denominational allegiance. Now, this one is going to be interesting. And so we have, let's say we have an Assembly of God church. I've been in many Assembly of God churches throughout my life, so I know them well. So you've got an Assembly of God church that was planted in a city. Well, that's great, but the leader of that particular Assembly of God church, by all means, will have great relationship with their denominational leadership and the different mentors and all of that. That'll be really great. But they will prioritize the relationship in the city. And I'm not just talking about relationally, I'm talking about functionally. Okay? So because the authority, the apostolic authority, the governmental authority in a city definitely trumps widespread networks and denominational headquarters and that kind of thing. Everything is city. You just got to keep that in mind. Everything is city. Consider the city. So if the leader of an Assembly of God church, maybe this will get tricky. It really will get tricky, and that's why there has to be agreement and there has to be unity on these things. But let's say an Assembly of God church, let's say another Assembly of God leader has a vision. Maybe they're a local there in the city. They have a vision for starting another church. See, the Assembly of God has these rules, and different denominations do as well, is that you can't start a church close to another Assembly of God church. There's certain rules. I'm not sure exactly what they are. Some of you may know, but there are definitely rules. And so, but this person in the city feels very impressed that they're supposed to start another church, and it's supposed to have a kind of a different flair maybe, and it's supposed to be 3 blocks away or 2 blocks away or whatever, or across the street from this other Assembly of God church. Well, the denominational headquarters may not like that, and it's certainly they'll have their input, and certainly they'll be part of the process, of course, but you have to yield to the city leadership, the apostolic leadership in the city. So the apostolic leadership in the city says, you know what? We really affirm this young new pastor. We know God's doing something. We feel here in the city, in this region, he's got an anointing. We believe he has a big vision for this region. It's God-given. And we really believe that he needs to plant his church here. And by the way, there's this property right here, right across the street from this other Assembly of God church. And I think it's the right place for them. And so they would have to yield to the leadership of the city. Okay. And in so many different ways, it might even get to the point Consider this, where the leadership in the city, and they've got these relationships and they're connecting on a weekly basis with different pastors. And you might say, hey, you know what? I believe these two Assembly of God churches really need to merge. This one leader here, he's not quite ready to lead as a senior leader, but boy, he's good. He's good at what he does, and we want to plug him in here as an associate or doing this different kind of a work. And this other Assembly of God leader, he is seasoned and he's good at what he does. And so we believe that you all need to do that. And of course, again, you can have communication with the AG headquarters and whoever's involved in that. But at the end of the day, it has to be those in the city that really have that governmental authority to make these decisions. So that'll be a challenging one. Some of you denominational folks out there, some of you leaders will be like, you're nuts, you're crazy, and you're saying people they even have different theological beliefs. We're talking about minor theological beliefs, and actually going to get into that in a minute. But you're saying they don't even believe exactly the way we do, and you're telling me that those people are going to have greater influence and impact and authority in this situation than the denominational headquarters? I believe so. It doesn't mean that the mentors and the denominational and the national doesn't have a voice. In fact, it should have a really strong voice. It should be extremely connected, and it should be heard absolutely without question. And that's why we all need to be in this together. But those with boots on the ground and those who have local authority, it's huge. Local authority is significant in the kingdom and in the realm of the spirit. Okay, so that's number two. Number three, these are marks of a city church. Regional events will be given priority over local schedules. So pastors or leaders of local churches, they should definitely be going full steam ahead and giving their all for whatever they're doing in their local church, because it's valuable and it's important, and they need to do it with excellence, and they need to build, and they need to invest in people, and they need to disciple, need to do all that stuff. However, when a regional, a city church event, we're talking about, let's say we have a city church prayer meeting that needs to happen on a particular day, and that particular day, a local church might have their own Bible study or something like that. Local church has got to give way to the regional event. Has to. Doesn't mean there's not some grace there. Doesn't mean that that at times maybe something is just real, like maybe there's a wedding and it's like, we're having this wedding and it's really important. It's been scheduled for a long time. And so we really need to, bless you and your wedding. We'll cover you all as we have our regional prayer meeting. So there's grace in it, right? And there's some flex. But generally, you're going to want to yield to the regional events big time. And not only you, not even in terms of, not only looking at it in terms of, schedule, but be all in. So be one of those pastors, one of those leaders that you are all in on the city regional events. I remember when I was in Colorado Springs, and, and once a year there'd be the National Day of Prayer event. And it was the biggest National Day of Prayer event in the nation in Colorado Springs. And churches were all involved. I mean, so many of them were involved, and it was huge. And they all had a part, and and it was awesome. And so that's really what we're talking about. And we need to even get, even more strategic. And, we need to have, strong apostolic leaders that can look at the landscape of the city. It's like, know all these churches and, know all these different pastors. And it's like, man, this is how we're going to see revival come, and we're going to impact the city this way. And, so we're going to have these events, and all these people are excited, and we're doing this together. And, maybe it's a monthly, worship event that the whole city comes together, on, stuff like that. So the regional needs to give way to the local. All right. Number four. This one's controversial. This should not be controversial, but it is. Multiple church participation should be encouraged. I believe that it's important to be faithful, to not be flaky, to be locked in, to be mature as an individual who's part of a church. I believe that's important. However, I also believe that different churches have different strengths and different focuses. No church is supposed to be all things to all people. It's just not supposed to be that way. So I encourage every time, I've been leading churches for decades, and I've always encouraged folks in churches that I gave leadership to consider other churches as well. Go to this church on a Monday night for their incredible teaching series. Go to this church over here on a Thursday night for their amazing evangelism strategy. Go to this church on Saturday night. Man, they have these worship nights that are off the charts, incredible. And, Sunday mornings, if you want to lock in here. But I believe that multiple churches and even being on leadership teams in multiple churches should be strongly encouraged. Right now, these days, it's strongly discouraged because there's this fear out there of we're going to lose our people, and we're going to lose our money, and they're going to be flaky, and on and on and on. Nope, we got to kill that thing. I think honestly, I think it doesn't taste good. It doesn't smell good. It doesn't pass the smell test, right? And so, so we need to encourage that. Again, I am not saying to be flaky. I am not saying to be like a church hopper, where you're like, I don't like this church, I'll go to this church. I don't like that so much, I'm gonna go to this church. I'm not saying to go to a church just based on which one makes you the happiest or which one affirms you the most. Or it's not about you. It's about giving and serving and locking in to what God is doing and being available, right? So it's not just going where people like you. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about intentionally, strategically growing. If you go to college, right, you are not only going to take one class. It would be absolute, utter foolishness, completely foolish. You're going to go to multiple classes, right? Multiple teachers, many different teachers. You're going to have many different experiences. You might be on different teams, okay? Well, you might say, but that's all under the umbrella of one local college. Go to multiple colleges. There's a lot of people out there that do that. They go to one, then they're going to go to another. We consider online. Do you really only watch one church online? Well, maybe you do. You don't have to. Do you only receive, and you shouldn't, do you only receive from one preacher or teacher online? Of course not. Of course not. Of course you're going to find someone teaching online and he is really, really good in this one area and you're growing, and he's not so good in this other area. And so what do? You find somebody else. If I want to grow in finances, there's certain people I'm going to listen to. If I want to grow in intercession and prayer, I'm going to listen to these people over here. I'll listen to Mike Bickle for prayer, maybe Kenneth Hagin for faith and finances and that kind of stuff. And you do that, and it's good and it's healthy. Okay. So we need to encourage multiple church participation. Okay. Number 5, minor theological differences are a non-issue. They're a non-issue. This morning, I was a guest speaker for a men's meeting, and these people were from all different streams. You got Baptists in there, you got tongue talkers, and a big part of my message was about praying in tongues. However, I was very appropriate and affirming. I'm like, listen, I said, is this a tongue safe place? Can we talk about it? And so I talked about it, and I said, hey, I know some of you don't do this. I know that there's different theological perspectives. I get that. This is what I believe. I completely understand alternate viewpoints. It's not a surprise to me. I get that. It makes sense. I understand. but let's do this together. And of course it works. It absolutely works. Is there a time, where we're going to be more locked in strategically with people who do believe in praying in the Spirit, as an example? Sure. Sure. But that doesn't mean if I'm a leader and we're praying in tongues like crazy, and some of my folks, they love this Baptist church down the road because that particular teacher, maybe they don't believe in speaking in tongues, but that particular teacher is really, really good in this area, or their youth ministry is doing something remarkable and God's doing things and people are coming to the Lord. It's really a non-issue in terms of being able to connect strategically, in unity on a city level. Major theological issues when we're talking about heretical stuff, of course, I think that's obvious, but minor stuff, we got to get over it, man. Next, where are we at? Number 6. Restructuring of leadership will be common. And I've kind of alluded to it, previously here a little while ago, where maybe this particular senior pastor of this church, he's not really cut out for it. And so he's going to be encouraged, not forced, but really encouraged, counseled by others in the local area. It's like, you know what? I know you're an AG pastor here, but this particular non-denominational church really needs somebody with your gift mix and your skill set, and I think you would thrive in that environment, And then guess what? The AG people, the national people, they're like, and I can just keep saying AG just because that's familiar to me. That's the only reason I keep bringing up the AG. Could be any number of denominations, but they say, you know what? Yes. And hopefully the national AG folks have developed relationship with some of the local folks. And they're like, you know what? Yeah, I know. Yeah. He's AG, he's credentialed AG, but yep, we celebrate him moving over into this non-denominational church. Yeah. We're not going to agree with everything theologically, but the core stuff, absolutely. And so we celebrate that. And so the restructuring, man, can you imagine a company that everybody that was the head of a department, they're in charge, period, and they can never be fired, and they can never be transferred, and they can never be moved around. Can you imagine that? It would be nonsense, right? As a leader of a company, you're going to see different people. It's like, you know what? Thought he was going to be good as the head of communications, but he's just not good as the head of communications, but I still believe in him, and I know he's got some skills, so I'm going to put him over here in this other department as an associate, and I think he's going to do much better. Well, same thing in the church, but we need to do that on a city level. Okay, next, number 7. Oh, I love this one. What I call the sheep protection fallacy is rejected. And so the idea is pastors, and I get it. Pastors are very protective, and they're like, I have to protect my sheep, which if you're not careful can turn into control. We do not want to have a spirit of control. And with the argument of I want to protect my sheep, I'm telling you, you need to stay locked in here only. This is the only safe place. Only safe place right here. And so you don't need to go over there. You should not go to this other church. You should not participate over there. Shouldn't do it. I'm protecting you. I'm not saying that that's an evil church, but I don't know what they do, and I don't know what their leadership's like, and I don't know what their day-to-day is like, and I don't know, but I know what it's like here. And you need to know that I'm your pastor, and I'm the one that God has called to take care of you and to shepherd you. And got to be careful. Got to be careful with that. To a degree, yes, we need to honor the leaders in our lives, and yes, there's assignments, and yes, I'm a big believer in submission to authority and in rank, appropriate biblical rank and order. I'm a believer in that. I teach about that all the time, but we can't get to the point where we're saying that I need to just protect all of my sheep, and they're all mine, and they're not allowed to go anywhere else. That's cultish. That's not healthy. That's not right. We need to trust our people, and we can counsel them. I remember a time when I was ministry in another place, and some of the folks in my ministry, they were going to a hyper grace ministry. And I tell them, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Here's the reasons why I'm concerned about that. But then I'd say, yeah, these things, they're doing really well. But boy, this particular core message I'm concerned about. And it's not something that I really affirm. But I'm not going to be like, you can't go there. They're going to go there anyway. They're their own person, their own people. And so I can share with them. There was another ministry in another city that was actually, the dude's a false teacher. He's bad. I mean, and I don't ever say that about people. I'm not even going to tell you his name, but he is, oh boy, not good at all. And back in the day, I didn't know what I know now. But I never felt at ease with his ministry. And I would tell the folks in my church that I'd be like, I don't feel good about it. And, but there were those that would go over to his ministry. Well, they are their own people. I shared what I shared, and they did both. So they went to that ministry, went to my ministry, and over time, I believe that they've found out that it's not the best place. So you can do that, you can share, but come on. I mean, in this whole, the whole sheep stealing thing, I tell people, other pastors or whatever, you can't steal what I don't own. I don't own my sheep. They're not my sheep. I don't own them. You can't steal what I don't own, right? And I've shared this so often that for years and decades, I've had an open hands policy. And I tell pastors and leaders this, that they can come into my church and they can recruit anybody that they want. They can recruit my worship team if I have one. Don't have one right now. You can recruit my associate leadership. You can recruit pretty much anyone but the pastor of the church, which is my wonderful wife Amy. Can't recruit her. She's staying with me. But you can recruit anybody you want. And you can do your sales pitch you don't have to feel guilty. You don't have to do it secretly. Right out in the open. My best intercessors, my most skilled people, my most faithful people, my most mature people, you can absolutely recruit them. Let them know it's like, yeah, God's doing this, and we're starting this new church, or whatever, and we would love for you to come on over, and I've got a position for you. Absolutely, you can do that. Because if they're supposed to stay with me, they're going to stay with me. If they're supposed to go with them, they're going to go with them. And of course, I'll be involved in the process. If the folks want me to be involved, and I'll share my input and I'll encourage them. It's like, I don't really think you're supposed to go over there, but pray about it, or I celebrate you as you go. And by the way, when people move on from our church to another church, you got to celebrate them. I mean, set off the fireworks and celebrate them and bless them as they go. Don't worry about, how are you going to replace them or whatever, and just bless them. But the whole sheep protection, sheep stealing thing, I believe it's just a fallacy. It's a myth. Does that mean we don't protect our sheep? I think I explained that we do. There's a way to do it. There's a way not to do it. And the way not to do it is by control, manipulation, guilt tripping, all of that kind of stuff. Let people make their own decisions. All right. Talking about city church stuff here, because again, remember, people are going to be involved in a variety of different churches, and we need to be ready for that. Number eight, the fivefold ministry needs to be emphasized. On the local church level, the local churches don't need to have all five of the fivefold. That's not realistic. Just isn't. Not everybody's a fivefold minister. In fact, very few are. And you're blessed when there's more than one in a local church. You got to have at least one as the senior leader. But on a city level, you do need to not only have the fivefold ministry, but you need to really acknowledge it and really function according to it. It's the church. It's the government for the city. So you need to know who are apostles in the city and who are prophets in the city, who are pastors. And by the way, pastors generally are not the best senior leaders. They are not usually the best. Sometimes, but not usually. They are. This is where a lot of the restructuring needs to happen in the church. It's going to take humility because people don't like to be what they would call demoted. But it It has to happen. Pastors are usually best one-on-one, small group leaders, that kind of a thing. We need strong apostles, leading local churches and really any of the fivefold can lead a church, but specifically they need to have an apostolic, gift at least. And by the way, you can have more than one office. You can be a prophetic apostle or an apostolic prophet or a pastoral apostle or whatever. But those who are just purely pastors and who have really strong mercy gift, not the best senior leaders. So we need to restructure sometimes, but we need to acknowledge and understand and function within the fivefold ministry. Okay, number 9, almost there. Number 9, these are marks of the city church. The regional vision trumps the local vision. And so a pastor, I'm a visionary. We launched Revival X, and I'm going for it, and I'm a visionary. But I understand here in Branson, the vision for, Revival X and discipling people and equipping and prayer movement and that kind of stuff that I'm involved in locally, it is trumped by legitimate, I'm not talking about distractions, I'm talking about legitimate regional vision. And I've said many times that if revival breaks out in another church or another part of the city, we're going there. Because the regional outpouring, the regional vision trumps the local. Doesn't mean the local isn't important. Doesn't mean that we're not giving it our all. But our local vision just needs to have worked into it the understanding that it's synergistic with the regional vision. There should be no local vision without regional as a part of it. And then when the regional happens, there might be other leaders in the city, and they're giving leadership in a specific way. That has to have precedence. Okay, yeah. And so very, very important. All right, number 10, and this is glorious. If we could ever figure this out, I would love it. Shared leadership between local churches. As an example, Revival X. Here's Revival X. Our new little baby church is really what it's a brand new little baby church. And, we have barely begun to develop, and the way we're starting this church is unlike the way many others do. We had no team. It was just Amy and me. We had no money, like an outside giving or a denominational headquarters or whatever. No money. No building. We had nothing. I mean, literally nothing. That's where we've started all 3 of our churches. And I love it. I enjoy it. And so I understand it might take 6 months for us to grow to 30 people. It might take a year for us to, and I'm not trying to grow numerically. I'm just trying to find my core team, trying to find the remnant, trying to find the firebrands, and whatever that number is, 30, 50, 80, I don't know. Might take us a year to really get, fairly strong and get 50, 60 people that are running together. And so in the early stages right now, we don't have that. And we're traveling in a couple weeks, and I don't have anybody to give leadership to the service, so we are canceling our service for that particular week. Wouldn't it be amazing if I could just go to 10 or 12 or 15, have a pool of amazing spirit-filled, fiery, wonderful pastors or leaders or apostles or prophets or people that could just step in. It's just normal. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll step in and I'll give leadership to your meeting that night. I think that would be amazing. Wouldn't it be cool if the Baptist church down the road, and they're like, man, the pastor's going to be gone for a few days or a few weeks. Hey, John, would you come in and teach? Could you do 3 Sundays in a row? Yeah, I would love to do that. That'd be incredible. And, in Colorado Springs, Ted Haggard, some of you remember him, and he went through a tough season in his life. Before that, he was the founder and the leader of New Life Church, which was just a huge mega church, and thousands and thousands. I don't know what the numbers were, 14,000, 20,000, 10,000. I don't know what the numbers were. Big church. And Ted I gave leadership to something called Secret Prayer with Ted, to where we'd go to a different church every Friday night and pray in the Spirit for 2 hours, and it was amazing. And he felt that we, in addition to that, that we needed to do a pulpit swap. And so we just pulled names out of a hat, and a bunch of us pastors, and Ted actually ended up preaching at my church, Revolution Church in Manitou Springs, Colorado. And then there was another pastor of a very, very tiny church. He pulled out New Life Church out of the hat, and he preached in front of thousands. This pastor who usually preached in front of 50, or I don't know what the number was, a small number, preached in front of thousands. I love that. I absolutely love that. And so the city church, we are going to see shared leadership between the local churches. And so there are some examples for you, and there's others. There's a lot of other things that we could talk about, but it's going to be challenging to see the city church happen. It's going to be a challenge, but I want to, especially here in Branson, I'm all in. I want to see this happen. I really want to see this happen. It's going to be exciting, and I believe that we have to do this if we have any hope of sustainable revival happening in our city. And if we just lay down our opinions and lay down our lives and just die to all that stuff and say, you know what, it's not about me. It's not about keeping people in my church. It's not about keeping money in my church. It's not about any of that at all. It's about revival in the city. If we can get to that place, man, it will be absolutely beautiful. And I know God will smile on Branson. Boy, it'll be absolutely stunning. And this can and should happen in every city in the nation and around the world. All right, everybody, there you have it. If you're in the Branson area, come on out to our little tiny baby church, Revival X. We are meeting Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, Stonebridge Resort in the Ledgestone Country Club. All right, go to revivalx.tv, revivalx.tv. You get all of the info there. And then you go to my personal ministry site, burton.tv, loads and loads and loads and loads of articles and teachings and videos and books and resources. So check that out. All right, till next time, everybody. I pray God just erupts in your life like a wildfire.